Welcome back to Talk Tonight. A $300,000 brownfield grant is on the way for the Merchants Commons development in downtown Syracuse. Includes a former Merchants Bank and Snow buildings, which are back-to-back on Warren Street, really part of the same project. The money comes from National Grid and from the utilities ratepayers. Goes towards improving the building's environmental efficiency. It's going to be used for removing asbestos and some other things. Merchants Commons includes apartments and office space. It's a new location for the Post Standard, right where Warren intersects, kind of on the edge of Hanover Square. Do you like seeing National Grid reinvest money from its ratepayers into development projects like this? Or should the National Grid, this giant utility, just reduce the rates and give the money back to the customers? Seems like a relevant question this time of year. Katie Corrado joins us tonight, and from Michael Benny on the Talk Tonight. And it's cold outside. There's people that have been applying for HEAP, which is the Energy Assistance Program, to be able just to pay their utility bills. And then we see the utility is taking $300,000, which is not, by their standards, a lot of money, but to any one household, a ton of money, and using it on a project that's privately funded and a private developer who stands to benefit from it. What do you think? What's going on here? Why is this a good idea, or why is it not a good idea?
Well, let's first talk about what these brownfield redevelopment programs are all about, because I think probably the vast majority of people out there aren't really too familiar with them. So we looked it up for you. They provide grants to fund utility-related infrastructure improvements, demolition, and other costs that are necessary, they say, to progress the redevelopment of a brownfield site or abandoned building. And as we know, this particular site, Matt, we were talking about this earlier, has been vacant for a number of years. So this developer came in, he was looking to redevelop the project. National Grid then came in with this $300,000 grant, which they say will help him in terms of the asbestos removal and some of the other things that need to be fixed.
But perhaps not a prototypical brownfield site, though, where we would think of environmental contamination in the ground and buildings that need to be knocked down. It's a little bit of a different approach, but National Grid has these specific criteria in its application process, and apparently the project has met those.
Yeah, and your kind of initial reaction was, gosh, what about the old couple maybe out there who are having a hard time paying their bill? And that was sort of the discussion that sort of sparked this for us this morning.
Right, and I understand wanting to put the money back and to take buildings that are not being used and to, look at them from the environmental perspective and to reuse them. I live in a building here in Syracuse that was once an old factory that's been repurposed and now is apartments, and I think that that's a great thing to do. I also understand the other perspective of the people, I think we take for granted sometimes, we pay our heating bills, but it's very difficult for some people. So it's a difficult thing.
Yeah, and one of the keys for this particular grant project is that National Grid requires that the developer be working with the municipality, have backing from other funding sources like an industrial development agency, which this project does. So they've met a lot of criteria just to get to the point where they can be eligible for this $300,000 grant, which is the maximum that National Grid offers under this brownfield program.
Yeah, and we heard from the developer today, Joseph Hecko, who's the president of Washington Street Partners, the developer behind this new project. Part of what he was saying today is through this grant program, we're going to be reusing this vacant building, the Merchants Bank and the Snow buildings, and transforming them into a mixed-use building. Obviously, he sees some great benefit in all of this for his project.
Yeah, and that's the way so many projects are getting done in downtown, and Katie, as you mentioned, in the greater downtown Syracuse area where there's more and more housing available, there needs to be this incentive program. I think you just have to be careful how it gets balanced in terms of who ends up profiting and who ends up gaining from it.
Yeah, and also there are tax incentive programs as well. There are kind of a couple of different brownfield programs. When we went to kind of look into this a little bit further today, it's not just this grant program, but there's also a federal program, a state program. So there are kind of a variety of ways that developers can get their hands on some of this money.
Related to brownfields in particular. Talk Tonight continues in just a moment. We've been talking about taxes throughout the night tonight. We're going to talk